The winter of 1992 in rural Maine was unlike any other. A record-breaking blizzard had rolled in days earlier, burying the landscape under a relentless sea of white. Roads vanished beneath thick layers of snow, and the biting wind howled like a restless spirit through the skeletal trees. In the small town of Millersbrook, life slowed to a crawl. Shops shuttered early, and families huddled by their fireplaces, listening to the steady drum of snowflakes against their windows. But for 10-year-old twins, Caleb and Charlotte Jennings, the storm was just another challenge to face. That afternoon, despite warnings, the twins set off from their schoolhouse, their boots crunching through the powdery snow. Their mother had insisted they take the main road home, but the twins, adventurous and confident, decided to cut across the woods, a shortcut they'd taken many times before. Their laughter echoed briefly in the frozen air as they trudged side by side, scarves pulled tight and cheeks flushed pink from the cold. But as they neared the edge of the forest, the world seemed to hold its breath. The snow fell heavier now, swirling around them in thick curtains that blurred the trees' dark outlines. Then suddenly their footprints stopped. The boots, once leaving clear imprints in the snow, vanished into nothingness. Neighbors would later say they never saw Caleb and Charlotte again. When Caleb and Charlotte didn't arrive home by dusk, panic spread through the Jennings household like wildfire. Their mother, Anne, paced the small living room, her breath fogging the cold air inside their modest farmhouse. The phone in her trembling hand felt impossibly heavy. Neighbors gathered, bundled in coats and scarves, forming search parties armed with flashlights and hope. The storm had finally begun to relent, but the bitter cold still bit at their faces as they fanned out into the woods, calling the twins names. Sheriff Dan Wilkes coordinated the search, his weather-beaten face grim beneath the brim of his hat. He knew these woods well, but even he couldn't explain how two children could disappear without a trace. Days passed, no sign, no footprints beyond the last known point where their trail ended. The only evidence was a single mitten found near the tree line, a fragile token lost in the swirling snow. Inside the town, whispers grew into rumors. Some said the twins had wandered too far and succumbed to the blizzard's fury. Others spoke of the forest's old legends, stories of shadows that snatched those who dared enter during a storm. Anne refused to give up. Every night she sat by the window, staring into the darkness, praying for a miracle. But the blizzard's grip had tightened around Millersbrook, and with it, the mystery of Caleb and Charlotte Jennings grew colder and colder. Weeks turned into months, and the winter thawed into a hesitant spring. But the search for Caleb and Charlotte had gone cold, both literally and figuratively. The townsfolk slowly returned to their routines, though the shadow of the twins' disappearance lingered like a heavy fog. Sheriff Wilkes kept the case open, filing reports and following every lead, but nothing came close to explaining how the footprints vanished in mid-snow. The forest seemed to guard its secrets fiercely, hiding any clues beneath layers of ice and silence. Anne Jennings refused to accept the cold silence. She spent hours at the ranger station near the edge of the woods, poring over maps and talking to anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual that day. One afternoon, a retired ranger named Tom Grayson mentioned an old motion-activated wildlife camera that had been left behind in the station years ago. It was supposed to capture images of deer and other animals, but had been forgotten when the station was abandoned during the harsh winter. Anne's heart raced. Could it be a clue? Had it recorded something that no one else had seen? But the camera had been lost to time and ice until 2007, when a salvage crew clearing the old ranger station discovered it, frozen solid beneath the snow and frost. In the spring of 2007, 15 years after Caleb and Charlotte vanished, a salvage crew working to clear the abandoned ranger station stumbled upon something remarkable. Beneath a thick layer of ice, partially buried in snowmelt and dirt, they found an old motion-activated wildlife camera, its plastic casing cracked but surprisingly intact. The crew carefully extracted the camera and thawed it out in the warmth of their makeshift workshop. Inside, they discovered a memory chip. forgotten but not destroyed by time. When the footage was finally viewed, it sent chills through everyone who saw it. The grainy video showed two children walking along a snowy path, their small figures bundled tightly against the cold. At first, it seemed like a simple recording of wildlife in winter, but as the camera's motion sensor caught movement near the tree line, the two kids appeared. Caleb and Charlotte. They trudged through the snow, their faces flushed with cold and determination. Then a third figure appeared, dark, shadowy, standing just beyond the trees. The figure did not resemble anyone from the ranger staff's records that winter. No one could identify the figure, and the video abruptly ended before any interaction occurred. The discovery ignited a firestorm of speculation. Who was the mysterious figure? How had they gone unnoticed for so long? And most hauntingly, what had really happened to Caleb and Charlotte Jennings? The release of the camera footage shattered the fragile peace that had settled over Millersbrook. Overnight, the forgotten case of Caleb and Charlotte Jennings was thrust back into the spotlight. News crews descended on the town, reporters eager to uncover answers, but the questions only multiplied. Anne Jennings, now older and weathered by years of grief, felt a mix of hope and dread. Seeing the images of her children, alive and walking through the snow, stirred a painful ache deep within her. Yet the shadowy figure lurking beyond the tree line haunted her nightmares. Sheriff Wilkes reopened the investigation, re-examining old files and interviewing anyone who had been near the ranger station during that fateful winter. But no new leads emerged. The mysterious figure remained an enigma, someone who had slipped through the cracks of the official records as if they had never existed. Locals whispered theories: an escaped fugitive hiding in the woods, a lost hiker who never returned, or something far darker tied to the forest itself. Old legends resurfaced, speaking of a watcher who appeared during storms, leading wanderers into the wilderness to never return. For Anne, these stories were no longer just folklore. They were the terrifying possibilities that might explain her children's disappearance. But as the snow melted away, revealing frozen secrets beneath the surface, one question loomed larger than all the rest. What did that figure want with Caleb and Charlotte? Sheriff Wilkes knew time was against them. The longer the trail remained cold, the harder it became to untangle the truth hidden in the forest's depths. With the new footage in hand, he assembled a small team to scour the woods near the tree line one last time. Anne insisted on joining. Her hope burned brighter than the biting cold. She needed to see for herself. As they ventured deeper into the tangled trees, the shadows lengthened, the air grew colder, and the silence pressed in like a weight. The footprints from that day had long since been erased by years of snow and rain. Still, faint traces remained, broken twigs, crushed leaves, that hinted at movement, a passage through the underbrush. They found an old, rusted tin box buried beneath the snow near the edge of the tree line. Inside were scraps of paper, yellowed and fragile, with childish handwriting scrawled across them. The notes spoke of fear, of being watched, and of a secret meeting in the woods. Anne's heart pounded as she read the final note. "He's waiting. Don't go alone." Questions swirled in her mind. Who was he? Was it the shadowy figure from the footage? And how much closer had Caleb and Charlotte come to the truth before they vanished forever? The forest held its breath, as if guarding its secrets jealously, refusing to surrender its dark truths. Back in Millersbrook, the discovery of the notes sent shockwaves through the small community. Sheriff Wilkes began cross-referencing names from the notes with missing persons, past suspects, and anyone with a shadowed past connected to the area. But the papers yielded no clear answers. Meanwhile, Anne delved deeper into her children's world, searching for clues in their belongings, schoolwork, anything that might hint at what they had uncovered or feared. She found a worn-out diary belonging to Charlotte, filled with childish drawings and fragmented sentences about a figure watching from the woods. One entry caught her eye. "I think someone is following us. Caleb says it's just the storm playing tricks, but I don't believe him." Determined, Anne reached out to people who had known the twins well, teachers, friends, even the salvage crew who found the camera. The salvage crew recalled strange sounds near the ranger station, whispers carried by the wind and eerie footprints that didn't match any animal. Then a breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a local historian named Margaret, who spoke of an old ranger who vanished mysteriously in the same woods decades earlier. Rumors said he was obsessed with protecting the forest's secrets, and some believed he had discovered something that cost him his life. The pieces began to fit: Caleb and Charlotte's disappearance, the shadowy figure, the warnings in the notes, and the legend of the vanished ranger. But the question remained: had the twins stumbled onto the same secret? And if so, was the shadowy figure friend or foe? As Anne and Sheriff Wilkes pursued the new lead, they uncovered the story of Samuel Harker, the ranger who had disappeared in the same woods nearly 30 years before the twins vanished. Harker was known as a solitary man, fiercely protective of the forest and obsessed with unexplained phenomena rumored to haunt the area. Local legend claimed Harker had discovered something in the forest, something he believed needed to be hidden at all costs. His disappearance was never solved, but strange symbols carved into trees and cryptic notes were attributed to him. Anne found herself drawn deeper into Harker's world as she uncovered a hidden journal among the ranger station's remnants. The journal described encounters with a shadowy figure, referred to only as the Watcher, who appeared during violent storms, always near the tree line. Harker's last entry was chilling. The Watcher waits beyond the veil of snow. It demands silence, or it takes what it wants. With every new revelation, Anne's fear grew. Could this Watcher be the dark figure in the camera footage? Was it responsible for her children's disappearance and for Harker's? Sheriff Wilkes organized a final expedition, determined to confront the mystery once and for all. But as they prepared to enter the forest again, Anne knew the truth they sought came with a price, one that might cost her everything. The forest was silent as Anne Jennings and Sheriff Wilkes led a small team beneath the skeletal branches dusted with fresh snow. The weight of decades pressed down on them, a mixture of hope, fear, and the desperate need for closure. They reached the tree line where the last footprints had vanished so many years ago. Anne's heart hammered as she scanned the shadows for any sign of the Watcher. Suddenly, movement, a figure stepping from behind the trees. But it was not the dark silhouette from the footage. Instead, a man, weathered and gaunt, eyes wide with a haunted expression. It was Tom Grayson, the retired ranger who had mentioned the wildlife camera. He revealed a secret he had kept for years. The figure in the footage was a stranger who had appeared at the ranger station during the blizzard, a man who had sought shelter, but vanished without explanation. Grayson had seen him lurking near the twins, but had been too afraid to intervene. The man had never been identified, and no one knew what happened after the camera stopped recording. Some believed he was connected to the legend of the Watcher. Others thought he was a lost soul, consumed by the forest's darkness. Anne felt a hollow ache, answers without closure. The mystery of Caleb and Charlotte remained unsolved, their fate swallowed by the endless snow and secrets of the woods. But the discovery rekindled hope that someday, maybe, the truth would emerge from the shadows. As the blizzard clouds gathered again on the horizon, Anne whispered a final prayer, promising never to stop searching for her lost children.